All right, I'm back with Chris Snook, and we just finished up the podcast, the first part of it. This is the exclusive content for those of you who bought the All Access Pass to the Influence Summit 2017. So we're going to deep dive here with Chris. We're going to talk about the highly profitable yet unsexy influencer. This coming from a guy who works out and is vegan and all this stuff. He's going to convince us that he's not a sexy guy. But so talk to us, Chris, about now when you brought up this topic and you said, hey, I want to talk about the highly profitable yet unsexy influencer. What was going through your mind? What were you thinking about sharing?
Well, I was thinking about the irony of by society's terms of what an influencer is today, I don't qualify, right? So I was going, well, I know I qualify, but based on what people think of when they think influencer, like I would never describe myself that way. Because I don't think it's authentic, right? I mean, my Twitter following's somewhere around 2,000 and change. My Instagram is open now, but it was private forever. So it's maybe a couple hundred people. My Facebook has intentionally been deleted down to like 126 friends and family. And so, I don't have the metrics, right? LinkedIn's 5,700 so it's like, if you just looked at me and said, well, why am I going to listen to this guy? He doesn't influence anybody. Where's his following? Then it would feel inauthentic. And yet at the end of the day, I make a couple $100,000 a year net off of influence. And so I felt like there's a way, to talk about that with you. And I think for some people it might resonate because I don't think everybody wants to be, well, we're not all good looking and tan, and can, take pictures in front of, every ocean on the planet as a way to make money. And we all don't have babies that are gorgeous and that we're willing to put on camera. And so if I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to make money as an influencer, what are my options? And I feel like I've got a great one for people. So
all right,
that's what was going through my head.
Do you want to tell your story a little bit? Maybe tell us how you developed this revenue yourself and give us some ideas about how we can do that.
Well, so my story, I'll try and keep it brief because I think it's relevant to some degree, but essentially, I'm a kid that didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family. I graduated college in 1998. I was probably the last generation to graduate college without a cell phone, without an email address, without a, computer. I literally wrote my last report from my senior year class on a Brother word processor that had 4 lines. You might remember it. I don't know if we're the same age or not. It was green screen and you had to feed paper in one at a time. It was basically a glorified typewriter. And when I say that, I sound like I'm 800 friggin' years old, right? Like it's unbelievable. And yet I am the, author of a best-selling book called Digital Sense with Travis Wright. I make my living today investing in and building companies that are trying to figure out where the internet is going next and how commerce is moving. And so it's kind of like this weird paradox of a guy who is this last vestige generation of analog. Thank God there was no YouTube. Thank God there was no Snapchat during my college years, to now one of the most digitally like native converse, like I consume it all day. Right. And so I don't know where we're going with that, but that's kind of my background. Right. So I think the question was, how did I get here? So I've been in all kinds of industries. I've been in fitness. I've been in real estate. I've been in finance. I did some private equity analyst work. You do those kind of things when you have a path like mine, because I literally nothing about sales, nothing about entrepreneurship. I went to grad school to get an MBA in entrepreneurship at San Diego State after going for exercise phys as a start. I realized quickly you can't learn about this stuff in school. I started a company. I lost $500,000 over 2 years, never got it off the ground, never got it to revenue. I spent the next 2.5 years earning it all back and paying it back. And I did that by following trends. Because when you owe $500,000 to friends and family and yourself, and you're not going to file BK, you don't really care. You get really agnostic really quickly on what people want to spend money on, right? And you become very opportunistic. And so, at my core, I'm a builder. I love building businesses that I think make a difference or that connect dots for people. I'm a sense maker. I can make complex stuff simple for the most part because that's how I understand it. And I've been completely agnostic to industry ever since the first one failed because I realized I loved building things and making a difference more than I loved any one specific vehicle.
So you said you're making a couple $100,000 net right now, and it's off of influence. So how exactly are you making your money now, and how does influence factor into that?
Yeah, so we'll dive in deep on this. I want to explain. The number doesn't matter. Like, it's like, are you bragging or complaining, right? Like my mentor used to say. So I'm almost embarrassed to say what I'm doing. I'm only doing that so that the people listening to this that invested their money for this understand. Like, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your skirt. There's people that make 10 times more money than me, doing very similar things, and there's people that make less. And so I don't really care about the money part. I say that only so that you know that this works, right? My goal for our family is for me to live off of the influencer money and invest everything else. And it's taken a long time to get that to the place where it could be, right? Because when you fail in other investments like I have over 17 years, you owe people, well, you don't always have to pay them back, but you owe people money. So I've owed people money basically in one form or fashion for the last 17 years, right? And because every time I had a win, then I had a loss, and then I had another win, and then I had a loss, and they kind of kept going up and to the right, but they were like, Bitcoin, right? Like it kind of, you knew it was going to get there, but on certain days you're like, whoo, man, should I sell? And so, I say that all with the caveat that this has taken me longer than, in my mind, if I was less self-aware, I would say it should have, because I know how to do this, and I've known how to do this for several years. But I've also made bets, and I've, made mistakes on where I placed that money. And I was maybe more risk tolerant in the sense of thinking I was going to be able to do this forever, and that, I was never going to get older and whatever. And, as you have a child, I have a 6-year-old, as you have those things, my DNA and my appetite for entrepreneurship has not waned at all. If anything, it's exponentially higher. But my weight on opportunity cost is paramount. So now I'm at that point where I'm going, yeah, that whole pay myself first thing, yeah, I'm going to do that. But I also have got accustomed to nice things. And so I give you all that context so that you understand, as you're listening to this, how to reverse engineer this to get whatever you want. Because I don't know what you want, but I know how to help you get it if you kind of take this and steal whatever you can from it. So fundamental rule number one is I only get involved in businesses, and I only think about influence as a way to get paid to prospect. So the key fundamental DNA strand is influence to me is getting paid to prospect for something greater. And I don't know if everyone thinks that way. I hope everyone thinks that way. I've found that a lot of people think it's a way to get paid for what you do. And that's fine, but I think that's very unsustainable, because daily blogs and things like that are awesome and they're all the rage today, but they're a trap, right? Like, when every moment of your influence is based on your highest and best moments in life, you're not really ever present. Like, you're productizing yourself in a way that I believe will burn people out, right? And if there's no back end, like there's no thing that once you capture me on whatever the hook is, like whatever it is, your blog, your pretty, your content, your pictures, your videos, your family, like once you hook me, like what am I going to transact with organically? Like, what do I, your customer, your viewer, why am I tuning in? Because if all I'm tuning in for is to watch you go through this phase of life, as soon as you're out of this phase of life, I'm not your customer anymore. There'll probably be someone else who'll be your customer. But now if you try and monetize me, I'm like, dude, leave me alone, or ew, right? And so that's not how I built my model. My model is literally, I have a portfolio of companies, and I only go after people that move budgets. Specifically in my world, I go after CMOs, C-level executives. I go after VPs. I go after people that have budgets. Because I learned a long time ago that in my world, I can influence anybody, but when you influence consumers, they're always broke. So even if you get their credit card today for $300 to $400 to sign up for your course or do whatever, they're gone because they're broke. And they either already took your course and go, I already took that, been there, done that. And at some point, like, they're affiliated to death. They're network market to death. They are opportunized to death, and they haven't made I can't curse on the show. They haven't made anything. I read that in the email, by the way. It's so hard, but I'm going to do it.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah. I did that one like. Okay, so they haven't made anything, right? And so they can't continue to perpetuate being your customer, even if they want to. And my world isn't that way. I go after people that control budgets that are not their own money, and that have organizations that need to solve problems to keep or retain their customers. And then I give them all my stuff for free. Like, I give them my best advice for free. Maybe it's not the best advice they could have got, but it's the best I could give them. And I don't charge them for it. And I help them without any opt-in, which is why, again, the database thing, like it wasn't developed as much as it could, because I almost got turned off by it in an earlier part of my life where I was heavily involved in that stuff. And I watched the bubble burst in '08, and I saw all these people that I knew I helped influence into this thing, basically just holding the bag. And I thought, you know what, that's not me. Like, I didn't do that, but I'm not going to be part of that. Like, I'm not going to build my influence business that way, right? I'm going to go after companies that are going to be able to ride through these cycles, that have budgets, and, you know, that I'm going to build relationships with people, and I'm going to write books and things like that, that give away the best information I can give so that people don't need me, right, to do whatever. They could read my stuff, they could listen to my stuff, and they could go execute. But if they want help, if they need to have it done faster, I have a portfolio company or an asset or a partnership affiliate relationship with someone I use that I will gladly refer them to and take money as a commission, as an equity play, as whatever. And so paid to prospect is go out, do a talk, sell a bunch of books, you know, to the organizer as part of my reason to go, get my flights and my, you know, hotel covered. And now, you know, because I didn't start this way, but, you know, now get a speaking fee, right? And I'll give you the model for how I look at it, just so you can reverse engineer that, but I'll take a breath. But did any of that make sense? Like, as far as the first strand of like just how I think about it?
Yeah, so I love the paid to prospect thing because, I mean, you're getting paid to do sales, which is, you know, most people think about doing sales, they're going out, they're knocking doors, they're making phone calls, they're sending out emails. But if you turn yourself into a thought leader or influencer, you can get paid to speak, you can make money off of books, you can do all this stuff, and you're selling at the same time that you can be making money doing that stuff. Not that it starts day one, but it can work.
So here's the mechanics, because I realized that I didn't give enough detail there, right? Here's the mechanics, because here's what someone today on this call literally could hang up right now and go execute. The mechanics are, if it's not something Launch House has invested in, okay? So let's say we do not own it. We don't have a stake in it, whatever. We have not written a check either because they wouldn't want one, they don't want us to write one, or we can't, or we've decided it's interesting, but it's not an investment fit for us. But I like the entrepreneur, or I like the service offering. The mechanics of it are, I understand cost per acquisition, cost per lead, right? And just like all of you. And instead of me thinking, where can I go spend money to try and acquire a customer at X cost that I'm going to convert, I flip it. And I go to, you know, let's just say, Josh, you're XYZ Co, right? And I go, listen, XYZ Co, you target CMOs in the middle market, yes? Mm-hmm. Okay. And what is your current cost per acquisition? And you may or may not know that top of your head, right? But they can get that data. And maybe it's not the CMO, maybe it's a VP. It doesn't matter. But someone who's in that decision-making power, who's responsible for that P&L, right? And I say, what's your cost per acquisition? And they say $1,000. Okay. So what's your cost per lead? And they go $100. And I'm like, okay. And then I don't have to ask them because I can do the math. I can say, so you close 1 out of 10? And they're like, yeah, right? So I use like real-time math in my head to impress them. That's the sales tactic, right? Like, I know their numbers better than them, but they just met me and it freaks them out, right? Like, it's like, well, I never thought of it that way. And I'm like, well, you said $100 a lead and, you know, $1,000 cost per acquisition, which means 10, right? So 10 times 1,000, 100. And so I go, so basically, if I was able to get you a $500 cost per acquisition, you'd give me $50,000 right now. And they're like, huh? But they don't say like, huh, like no way or get out of here. They go, huh? And sometimes they get it, right? Because they do the math. And then other times they don't. And while they're thinking about it, I go, because essentially if I could cut your cost per acquisition in half or shit, pardon me, or crap, 25%. If I could make it 750, your LTV stays the same, right? And I'm like, yeah. So when I didn't have the credibility, and I've always had incrementally building credibility, but when I didn't have the credibility that I have today, like I still did it. I just wouldn't take a draw, right? I would say, when I didn't have the things to point at of where I've done this, I would say, well, listen, you don't have to pay me anything. I'm going to go bring you people. And all I want is I want this percentage every time I do, because I'm saving you 25 to 50% on your cost per acquisition. So I want some of that. And no one says no to that, because basically, what are they going to lose, right? Like if I don't produce anything, they don't lose anything. If I produce a lead, then they don't care because I still save them money, right? Now, so because that was, several years ago, so I kind of incrementally moved into this. Now the model is, and how I make the money I make, forget the number because it's irrelevant, but how I make the money I want to make and how I will make more of it, because I'm not where I want to be yet off of this. But my goal within the next 12 months, and I will say that because it's irrelevant, it's just a goal, but just so you guys know, I want to make $1 million a year getting paid to prospect, meaning like I want to make $83,000 a month, not doing any, not having any employees, right? Other than freelance staff and things like that, just doing what I just said. And I can do that with the right mix of companies. I can do that with 5 companies that all complement each other, and that I don't have to go own, I don't have to go run, and I don't have to manage. I just got to find someone who's going to make sure they stay in business and going to make sure that they want to grow at some level of incremental growth, right? And that has a unique and like either I've used them or they have a unique and trusted thing that I feel like is truly a benefit to the customer, because ultimately, again, I'm making the introduction, but I'll get, I'll get a couple exclusives and they'll pay me, minimum 5 and typically right now 10 grand a month. And that's that's a base plus call it a draw against commissions, right? Because we'll set a target and we'll say, look, like once we eclipse $1 million in sales, then I go to this percentage of commission because it'll be more and it'll work for you because it's now a variable cost and whatever. But to get me, it's going to be 10 grand a month. So all I got to do is find 8 companies at that number. Why I say 5 is because 5 is not too many. It's not like I'm opening up Rolexes and wristwatches and, and toothbrushes and stuff on the corner. But essentially, it's kind of like I get to go, I meet you at a conference and I speak and you go, I need your help, Chris. And I go, great. What do you need my help with? And I just figure out what you need. And then I'm like, okay. And sometimes I don't have anything in the portfolio that I'm monetizing, but I know exactly who you need to meet. So more often than not, like this is the generosity part. So first is paid to prospect. Second is be generous and don't try and monetize anybody, right? It's a contradiction, but it's like how I think is I've spent the last 8 years literally just connecting people because I get turned on by it. I think it's cool when people meet and I'm good at it. And so I get like fulfillment out of that. I also just don't want to be broke. And so now I've understood how to put a value on my time. But it's taken me a while to get there because my natural DNA is I'll do this for free. I'll do it just because I like putting good people together. And that's cost me money. Like I've probably left several $100,000 on the table because I didn't like emotionally, I just couldn't get over that. I don't want to be a pusher of product. And now what I've realized is that I've had enough calls where there's no shortage of people that want me to sell their stuff for them. Right? Like, so I won't do it for free anymore unless it's something that I own, because then I'm not doing it for free. I own it. But, when someone calls me, I was like, oh, well, you want to rep my stuff or you want to channel partner this? I'm like, well, sure. Here's my model. But if it's really good, I'll go, you know what? Let's not worry about money at all. It's good. It's that unique. I know people that need you. Here, take a couple. And if we get a couple going and it becomes like consistent and I feel like there's going to be, then we'll talk later. But for right now, I've got 2 or 3 people that need you right away. I don't know if that's going to scale. So here, and I don't need anything because I don't want to be committed to deliver leads and something I'm not sure I can sustain. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But because I've done that, those same people come back to me when they need an agency or they need something else and like, Chris, who else do you know? And I do have one of those, right? And so because I didn't monetize them in a contract and I hooked them up, then it's like it all works. But it's a long play. It's not like get there in 30 days or less. But that's a little bit more detail is figure out the cost per acquisition, understand how you can get in front of that audience with your content, build real relationships, connect people from a place of generosity because it's the right thing to do for other business people, and then understand what your time and your influence is worth, and gradually move yourself into a position where you go, you know what, I need $2,500 a month base, and I want 15% commission, right? And I'm going to do this many SQLs. I call them SQLs, sale qualified lead, right? It's like another acronym you can write down. And interrupt me, Josh, if I'm talking too much, because I'm just kind of flowing on how I do it, but I don't want to.
I'm just absorbing all this. I'm just sponging it up. This is great.
Okay, no, I just feel free to interrupt me because I will just keep rambling. But the other thing I write down is B as in boy, A, N, T, BANT. So like how I sell it and not how I sell it, like how I deliver it, which is why it sells, is I go, look, I'm going to do this many things. I'm going to either get you an SQL in this much per month, meaning I'm going to deliver 2 or 4 SQLs per month. And it varies on the deal, right? It varies on, most of these are B2B sellers in my case, right? They're businesses trying to sell into other businesses. And so I go, what do you consider to be an MQL, marketing qualified lead? What do you consider to be an SQL? SQLs are all that matters for most enterprise sellers. And here's why. An MQL is someone who, depending on how sophisticated their back-end office is and their marketing automation with Marketo and all this stuff, is someone who at a conference or whatever raises their hand, downloads white papers and says, I have this problem and you're nurturing me, right? That's an MQL. An SQL is someone who says, I have 2 of the 4 BANT: budget, authority, need, and timing. Budget, authority, need, and timing. So BANT qualified lead means I know the budget. So if I was selling you, I know what your budget is. You're the authority, or you influence the authority, and I know who that is. I have a name and a number and an email, right? Like known authority. This person pulls the trigger or says no. Need, you need what I solve, meaning my software, my service, my agency, my whatever the hell. You need it. I got it. Timing, 90 days or less. That's BANT. SQL is 2 of those 4 known that I can go, here you go, Josh. They got 50 grand. They need what you do. I don't know when. I think first quarter, right? But if I get you 2 of those a month, you keep paying me 2,500 or 5 grand or whatever it is that we negotiate, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with your sales process. So I'm not going to create my own sales process. You're going to, if you want me to report into your CRM, I'll report into your CRM. If you want me to hand it off to, your top salesperson, I'll get it to SQL. I'll hand it off to them. I will stay on the CC. I'll make the introduction call. I will talk about how awesome it is to meet Joe and blah, blah, blah. And I've sent several people his way. You are in good hands. I hope this works out for you guys. Like, I will do that transition. And then when it closes, right, after I hit a certain number, right, like, so let's say the deal's $5 grand a month for you're going to give me 2 to 4 leads a month, Chris. If I'm getting $5 grand a month, then I have some back end kick, right? But that's not going to kick in until the volume of sales is there, right? So let's say, typically, on $500,000 in sales, $5 grand a month is roughly, 12% or whatever of that. So, figure until I'm doing $500,000 a year in recurring revenue with you, I'm not going to see more than $5 grand a month. But as long as I'm delivering leads at 50% to 75% of your current cost per lead, you'll pay me that $5 grand a month all day long, whether I close them or not. Does that make sense?
Yep. So I want to bring this home for our audience, because I think this is what I'm loving here is that, like, you started off, you started talking about how you don't have a ton of Twitter followers, you don't have a ton of LinkedIn connections, Facebook connections, all that stuff, but you're still using influence. So I was curious to see where you're going to go with this. And the interesting thing here is that people follow these vanity metrics, the number of Twitter followers and all this stuff, but you're really connecting with people one-on-one, and it's that kind of influence that you're bringing to bear. That's what's fueling your business. And so I can see when I'm listening to you how ridiculous it would be for you to focus on growing your Twitter following to 20,000 or something, because that's not where you make your money. You make your money on the deep one-on-one connection that you have with people, and then being able to connect those 2 people, to be able to say, hey, Joe over here, Bill over here, you guys should get together. You should know each other because you guys can help each other out. And you provide that value and that connection. That doesn't require 20,000 people to make that connection. It requires 2 connections or 3, or however you want to talk about that. And that's the thing, is that anybody out there who has worked for a couple of years in just about any business has enough relationships that they could start that type of business. They could start providing that type of value by making those connections, and they could build a business around that. And they don't have to have a ton of followers. They don't have to have a ton of connections. They don't have to have a ton of know-how with speaking or all this stuff. They just need to know how to make introductions and create value that way. And boom, they've got a business. Am I right? Am I following you?
You're following it. And so let me give you another like visual tactic, right? So I'm doing this because we don't have a white screen. So just think of a triangle. If you're taking notes, like draw a triangle on your page, right? And think up here at the top, write the word expert. Okay, just write the word expert at the top. Down here, write the word prospect or target, whatever you want, right? Like the person you're trying to influence. And then over here is you. Got it? So in every relationship, in the beginning of every relationship, what exists and what does not as it relates to these two things? There's a certain amount of trust that you could have, right? 0 to 100. There's a certain amount of respect you could have, 0 to 100. A brand new relationship, what exists?
Well, no trust because you haven't built it up yet. No trust,
right? No trust. So the only thing you and I can bring to a brand new relationship is what? The only thing we can bring? Respect, right? So here's the expert. Here's your target. Here's you, or however we did that. This line here, where my thumbs are, between us exists, when we know each other, is trust. But until we know each other, right, only respect can exist. So when I'm an influencer and I have people following me, regardless of the medium that they're following me in, my blog, my Insta, my whatever, doesn't matter. When they follow me, there is an element of trust now, right? Or they wouldn't be following me, right? But what they don't know. So if I say I'm going to introduce Josh, and I'm gonna try and get people to do business with you, right? They don't know you, but they follow me, or they read Digital Sense, or they whatever, right? They had me speak, so they trust me now. And what they trust is they trust that I will not waste their time. Since they trust that I will not waste their time, if I properly build up anybody other than me as it relates to their need, they see that person as a what?
As another expert. Yeah, an expert.
They see that person as an expert because I, the one they trust not to waste their time, am talking so highly about that thing or that person or that firm or that software. So if I talk about Telium, which I'm raving about, I don't even have an official contract with them yet, but I'm getting one, just in full disclosure. But I don't have one yet. But I've referred them 3 customers already, and I have 2 of my companies in our portfolio buying their software because it's badass. So it's super easy for me to talk about Telium because A, we're using it, I'm paying them, and B, I like them. Especially this gal, Leah, that I met, who's one of the best enterprise salespeople I've ever met. And I love her process. So I trust that she will take care of whoever I put, even if it's not a deal for them. And so for me, I sit there and talk about marketing technology, digital sense, digital touch points, customer experience, putting customer in the center of your business, and having silos that talk to each other versus not talk to each other, and how data governance and everything else needs to streamline that process. And people go, oh my God, what do I do? I'm like, well, first thing you gotta do is get your nomenclature right. You gotta get your data layer right. And it should be agnostic, because if you buy Oracle or you buy Adobe, but you change your mind 3 years from now, you're gonna have to redo everything. You don't wanna do that, do you? No. Great, let me introduce you to Leah. I don't know if it's a fit or not, but she's this, and that. Telium's this, and that. And listen, I think it might be a good fit. What are they doing? They're going, hell yeah, I'm in. Make the call. I put them on that call, and if it's good, if the expert delivers, game over.
Yep.
So there's a framework to this. It's not me just like being a good talker. Trust and respect. The more you get to know someone, the less you respect them. So what's powerful about me is when I pitch the agency, when I pitch that, I'm not running it. Like, I don't run Elevated. I don't. Danny runs it. Carrie runs it. I don't run it. But people know I'm not going to associate myself. I could pick there's 100 agencies in Scottsdale. I could pick any agency I want to go drive leads for. So they know that about me. So when I say you need to go talk with these guys, by the way, if you don't feel they're a fit, I have some other people I'll gladly introduce you to, because I will. But here's my first choice. And by the way, I have a relationship with them. I don't think that's going to matter, but be a grown-up, make your own decision. and I hand walk them into the CEO, how am I doing? Game over. And if they don't like my expert, guess what? They did it very efficiently. And they go, you know what? I don't know. Culturally, wasn't a fit, or this wasn't a fit. But thanks for the intro. The relationship between me and them is intact because I didn't force it down their throat. So they go, you know what? I appreciate the thought. Thanks for that, but it's not a fit. I can't get my IT guy to go for it. He's a Google Tag Manager guy. He's never going to go for Telium. Okay, no problem. But hey, Chris, I really appreciate that. If you have anything else you think I should look at, please let me know. So my relationship of trust never gets broken, and the expert is my deflector when they say no. So when they say no to my expert, I still have their love and trust. When they say yes, I'm a freaking hero, and I get paid.
Awesome. Man, this is great stuff. And I think for some people, they're going to listen to this and they're going to be like, wait, this doesn't fit my model of what I understand an influencer to be, but it should, because this is the easier way to get in. Going in and trying to go after all the vanity metrics and trying to build up your follower counts and all that stuff, you could spin your wheels on that for the next 2 years and get nothing out of it. But what Chris is talking about, you could implement this like this week, and you could be building a business this week, making revenue this week.
Here's the thing. I am hell-bent on building my follower base, right? I mean, I could work just as little or just as hard, however you want to think about it, on this, right? And by the way, this takes up I'm trying to think. When I talk about the economics, like the economics of the influencer piece of what I do, right? I want to live off of that income and buy all the crap I want, but never, and then all the exits and everything else, just investment money and build our net worth. That number, regardless of what that number is to you, regardless of what it is to me today or will be tomorrow, it might be, counting the writing, counting everything, it might be 30%, 20% of my week. So like, this whole last 3 weeks, I've just been in research mode for the new book and on blockchain and everything else, because it's a numbers game of how many SQLs. So instead of me saying, hey, pay me $400 a post on LinkedIn or pay me $1,000 for this, which that works. Some of you are doing that. And listen, I want to learn from you because there's something there, right? But for me, I didn't have the follower count to justify that money. Plus, to me, it's too transactional. Right. And my DNA and my setup was what we've talked about. So I think everyone could implement an aspect of this. If it's a consumer product, it's the same thing. Trust, respect, make the expert, the product, the demo video, make it anybody other than you. Like, don't explain it. Just explain why it matters. Right. Put context around the whole thing. If it's, natural foods versus GMOs, right? Then be a context creator with your thought leadership and become such a trusted voice of non-partisan reason that you can sit there and be like, listen, I just want people to be able to make better choices. If you choose to go vegan or you choose to do this or you choose to do that, I don't care, right? I just want you to know why you're choosing it. Like, put context around it. So no matter what industry you're in, do that. And then as you put context around it, build up a group of experts, whether they're products you refer, whether they're whatever, where you can say, go check out this video or go look at these testimonials or go, download these recipes, whatever it is. So I think everybody could do it. It works best in B2B because the numbers are bigger, right? Like, these companies are spending real money, and it's not about how much paid media or SEO or whatever they spend. It's about the one metric that matters, which is how many SQLs came through the door this month. Because an SQL means I know budget authority, or I know need and timing, and I can move them down to my lower funnel, and I'm going to convert 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4. I can see money in an SQL. Everything else, I can't see money in, I just see expense. So if I bring you, forget top of funnel, if I bring you middle funnel, you know what to do with that. And all I have to figure out is if it's $100 cost per acquisition, can I get it to you for 50? If it's 1,000 or whatever, can I get it to you for 500 or 750? If I get you the same thing for less, you will do business with me. And you'll pay me, and then you won't manage me. You won't call me and say, are you going to be on this meeting? Are you going to be on this? Are you going to show up in the office? You'll just go, Chris, thanks for the 4 leads this month. Thanks for the 7 leads this week. And when you go out and speak, now you have a reason. So here's the last piece of this puzzle. Because some of you are at different stages. Some of you get paid way more than I do to speak. Some of you maybe don't get paid at all to speak, and you're wondering what the balance is, right? And I think it's just one of those things you got to figure out. But here's how I do it. I've come to the realization this year, I've finally started putting math around this for my own sake. And my wife and I are managing, the time of all these things in our business. So we came up with every day that I'm out of the office is $18,000 cost to the company to get where we need it to go. It's arbitrary. It means nothing to you. It's so that you figure out what is your out-of-pocket cost. So why that matters is if you go to my website and you go book Chris to speak, you'll see 15 to 25K is what it costs me to speak. So I'm going to give you my whole playbook right now. I have not yet charged 25K to speak. Now I'm going to. I can't wait to close that guy or girl. But it's not about the cash. It's about, there's 5 things that I look at. And so when people call me and they're like, hey, we'd love to have you at the event, right? China Marketing Summit, right? When I look at those things, I go, okay, is there a net fee? Meaning, am I going to get paid something just for showing up and talking? Chris, we don't have any budget. Okay. So one down, $15,000 to $18,000 to go. Who's in the audience and how many of them are there? Why my infrastructure of what I'm Rolexing and toothbrushing matters is because I know if it's an audience of influencers, I don't have anything to sell them. So it might make me feel good to be on stage in front of a room full of people with bigger follower count. It's a stupid business decision. Because now I'm 2 down, no budget and nothing but vanity metric, right? If it's a room full of 200 or 150, not 10,000, not 5,000, but they are director level and above managing marketing spend. Interesting. In my head, I go, out of 150 people, I've done this enough where I'm going to get at the end, if I sprint out of there between the conference door and the Uber to the airport, I'm going to get tackled by 20 people with business cards. MQLs. My MQLs. Because they haven't said anything to me yet, but they're going to give me their card and be like, I was amazing. Can we follow up? Can I connect you? Right? And I'm going to have 5 or 6 LinkedIn things in my phone by the time I sit down in my Uber and start checking my email. So if I can get 150 people that are managing marketing spend or product at a company, things I have solutions for, then I know, you know what, I'll probably walk out of there with 15 to 20 MQLs, which means I will likely have 6 to 10 conversations. And in my world, I put a number of $1,000 to $1,500 on a conversation. So let's say 6. What do I have? 6 times 1,500 is $9,000. How far short am I from my 18K? 9.
Mm-hmm.
Got it? So I go, great, $9,000 in potential leads, and I'll take that risk. I'm making that bet. Maybe those leads are shit. Sorry. Maybe those leads are not good. You can edit that in. But then I go, okay, I got $9,000 to go, and I got 3 options left. Hotel covered, yes or no, right? Flight covered, yes or no. Those are almost mandatory now. The only caveat to that being it's like Web Summit or something monster where me just having the B-roll and the video to put into some of my promotional content is got its own marketing value, which I'll arbitrarily put in, right? But right now, I'm not paying my own way to go do it, right? Like I'm not going to do that. So what I do is I say, listen, my fee's $18,000, but that's inclusive of a couple things. What kind of budgets do you have? Are there any keynotes? What are you even thinking, right? And we figure out, what are we thinking first? Is there a content fit? Once there's a content fit, I'm like, do you have any budget? No. Well, all right. Who's going to be there? Bum. And I come up with a number. I go, okay, I got $9,000. Airfare and whatever. Okay, $1,500. How many days is it? Right? So like, can I come in? Can I do it? And can I leave? Now, in some cases, I want to stay. Depending on the event, I want to stay for 3 days because I can go put other things around it, right? So if I'm coming to China, I'm not coming back the next day. Gary Vaynerchuk's a whole different animal, right? $100,000 a speech, like he can do that stuff. I'm not doing that flight in 24 hours. There's no way. Plus, I'm really keen on Asia, right? I know there's business for me over there. So I go, all right, now I have this thing pulling me there and basically getting paid to prospect. And now I'm going to put other meetings around it under the context of, hey, I'm flying out to speak at XYZ. And look, I'm going to be sitting in a hotel room and I hate hotel rooms. So, and then I just stack meetings. I cold call like bonkers on LinkedIn to everybody that's in market. that has a C-level title. And I continue to build my database of C-level people on LinkedIn that I can get to. And then I buy them coffee and I just hammer it. And all I do, I don't sell them anything. I just go there and try and figure out what the heck they're up to and how I can be a resource and how I can connect them with someone else in my market. Why? Because that's how I build my database. And if I meet you and I have no agenda other than who out of my 5,700 C-level contacts that I have could be a good fit for you, even if I'm not involved, you're like, who the hell is this guy? Because I'm sitting there putting you with 3 relationships that you didn't have to work for, that you got walked in on, and I don't even monetize them, right? I'm just going, man, this good guy, good guy. They're happy because they're going, man, I'm glad I'm in Chris's network. Every time he calls me, I'm going to pick up. You're like, this dude's the best cool dude I've ever met. I didn't know I was going to do this over coffee. He just put 3 people in my lap that solved problems, and he didn't ask me for any money. And I just leave. Because I'm already there getting transactional value out of the talk. So everything else is bonus. So I pack my calendar that way. I'll do startup week stuff. I'll do whatever the heck else is out there. Startup grind. I'll go speak and I'll go build my masses crowd or whatever incremental following I can, because it's content, it's stuff I can get access to, it's library building, and it's just being more proficient with my time. So flight and hotel, that's covered. And now I go, what's left? So I'm like, all right, maybe flight and hotel, if it's international, call it $2,000 or $1,500. So now I got $7,500 back. And now I go, listen, is there what I'd love to do is figure out if there's a way to get, $5,000 to $7,000 in net fee. If you can do $5,000 to $7,000 in net fee, I'm there. Otherwise, I got to keep the date open. And from there, I don't stop it there. This is where I haven't solved for this yet. Totally open the feedback for anybody online who wants to share it to me. I will work very hard for that $5,000 to $7,000. This thing I'm doing at South Bend, they're a nonprofit. They're going to put 200 people in the room that are all marketers. It's an AMA chapter. Their entire budget the year prior was under $5,000. Their entire budget to operate this whole thing. It's a volunteer-led thing. I said, look, my nonprofit rate, and this is true, anyone who's a nonprofit, my nonprofit rate is $5,000 net fee. The 5th thing that I didn't talk about yet is books. You got to buy at least 100 books. Now, sometimes they say, no, we're not doing books because we have 800 authors and we can't have one guy with a book and everyone else not. So again, just one that I strike, and it weighs whether or not I want to go, because I want to get the book out there. Why? Because the book does my work for me. If I hand out 100 books for free, I'm never going to sell books at the back table. That's the cheesiest thing on the planet in my mind. I'll never do it. I will either bring books myself to hand out and eat the cost of $13 a copy because it's worth it to me, right? Or I won't go. So I go, listen, call 800 CEO Read. I'm giving you guys my whole playbook. I hope this is okay. And I literally say, because this is true, guys, with Wiley, I make $1 a book regardless of what you pay. So pay as little as possible. Right? I don't care where you buy the thing. I would call 800 CEO Read first, because Aaron, who's a great guy over there, he's just reliable. He always beats everybody up on price. And if you ask him for it, he'll probably give it to you. And if not, he's just super easy. So I would start there. If you don't like the price, you think you can get it cheaper somewhere else, call Wiley, call whomever. I don't care, because I make the same. So I don't want you wasting $1 more on my book than you have to, but you got to buy 100, you got to buy 150, you got to buy 250. Like, it depends on how many people are there, right? If it's a 500 person event, I want them to buy 300 bucks. First 300 through the door, get one, that kind of thing, right? It helps them promote. What I did in this nonprofit case was I said, okay, the reality is you guys don't have budget, but I want to help you. And I didn't do it desperately. I was like, I want to help you. And, I have the date open. If there's any way I can help you, I know a sponsor in Indiana. I just spoke at another event down there. It's a couple hours south of you. They've got a huge presence. They're a bank. I'll introduce you to them. So I literally brought them their first sponsor prospect, because I know they're not going to pay me, right? They're not going to book it. But I got a guy who just was excited, was super happy that he paid $5,000 to have me come out and speak at his association event. I just did this workshop as part of it, as a throw-in to an hour and a half for his 24 key executives. It went awesome. I had a blast. They got value out of it. So I know I can ask them. And I'm like, hey, listen, you guys have a presence up there. Would you consider talking to them about sponsoring? They want to have me out. They don't have the budget. They're looking for a sponsor. I think it's a good fit. I'll build on the last thing. I'll make it worth your time. You know that. So why don't you talk to them, see if it's a fit? So now I go to the event organizer, who is obviously $5,000 is all the money in the world to them, because they had never raised it before. No one's on full time. They're all volunteers. And I'm coaching them on how $5,000 is a peanuts for anything, not just for me, just peanuts. It's nothing. And I'm going, wow, my mindset wise, they're not there. But now I come in and I'm like, hey, listen, here's a lead. And off of that, to their credit, and this is to their credit 100%, but to their credit, off of that, they're like, holy crap, this guy is like going to work with us to help us get this money. And so they go out and they start brainstorming, and they're like, we got like all these leads. I'm like, okay, listen, don't blow it. I know how to sell these people. I want to help you. I'm going to teach you how to raise money. You should not be trying to raise this money to get me there. You should be raising this money to put a budget together for the next 10 years to have a guy like me every month. And so I literally enjoy that stuff. So I coach them up. Well, these guys went out literally and they've raised 10 grand in the last 2 weeks. They called me up. They said, I don't know if we're going to get it. We got enough. Would you do it for 2? I still have the date open. Opportunistic, 200 people, 2 grand. It's a day in, day out. I fly in the 18th. I do it and I come home the 19th. So at this point, I'd rather speak and get potential leads because those make more money. And they're like, we can give you 2. And if we raise anything else, we'll give you the other 3. And I could have said no, but I said, still doing $100, still flying me out, still doing that? Yeah, I'm like, fine, let's do it. Because I'd rather speak than not speak. So I took it. 2 days later, they closed the other deal and they give me the other 3 grand. Now, why did they do that? A, I think they're just honest and good people. B, because B, because I worked for it. And it's so much fun connecting with people like this. I'm such a fan. Like, I'm so impressed by how they've stepped out of their comfort zone. I can't wait. And they had a room for their best room yet. It's like 120 people. And I think as of this weekend, they already have 120 booked. And they're going for like, they have a room that holds 400. They're probably going to put at least 200 people in this thing. And most of those people are going to be brand new members. And all I'm going to do up there, trust, respect, is I'm going to do my talk. But the whole talk, I'm going to talk about how impressed, I'm going to use anecdotes and how impressed I am by this leadership team and why everyone in this region that's serious about their business needs to join this organization because this organization's going places and this is going to be the heartbeat of South Bend and this is going to be the heartbeat of, small business marketing. And if you're not here, you're going to be out of the loop. And I'm going to sell memberships for them, not because I have to or because they're paying me to, because I like to, right? So that's just how I've built my business. It's not right or wrong. I'm sharing my playbook there only so that you can steal whatever makes sense to you. The last thing I'll say, and then I know we're probably over time, the last thing I'll say is I love startups, but there's very little money in startups. And I spent 2.5 years in sabbatical looking for the next business to start between 2013 and 2015. We moved to Colorado, and I built startup events with my wife, and we had a blast, and we brought over 3,000 people in 2 years to Fort Collins from 25 states, 11 countries, and 5 continents in the second year. Inc. magazine covered it. It was all free, and we did it because I love doing it. I wanted to serve it. I also wanted to prove to myself after the 2012 year that I hadn't lost my edge, and I really needed it. I needed to go out and serve and build something from scratch. When we moved to Colorado in June of 2013, I knew 0 people in the state of Colorado, professionally or personally, 0. 11 months later, we had an event with 3,100 and some odd people from 16 states in Puerto Rico, and the governor on speed dial. And that's not to impress you. It's simply because of leveraging these tactics I'm talking about and knowing how to be a human being to another human being and create relationships of value without being monetized. But that experience and and doing it that way, belly to belly, taught me that I love startups, but I can't make any money in them. Right? I'm not a venture capital fund, and unless you are, angel investing is the worst thing in the world, my opinion. So either build the business and own it, or be a venture capitalist, but don't try and be in between because it's a science and you can't do enough math, right? And you'll hear people say different things. I'm just telling you how I feel, and I love startups. So I don't have the massive J Snook following. We've already hit that to death. So why did I seek out, when I had the relationship with the editor-in-chief at Inc., why did I seek out a column on Inc.? What is that? How does that weave into this whole thing I'm talking about when I'm talking about B2B? It weaves in 2 ways. I'm passionate about startups. Entrepreneurs turn me on in any form because I was that young, hungry, totally unskilled, totally unaware kid 18 years ago. And I spent 35 grand on ebooks and seminars because there was nothing like this to learn what I learned today. And it was a lot of more money than it costs today, but it was priceless to me, right? And so I will help anybody I can as long as there's bandwidth and time to do it, or I can do a recording for it because I love it. But it's not on purpose and it's not directional because I don't have a fund and I'm not going to raise a fund. We invest in companies, but I'm not going to go do it that way. So Inc. was a way to put a brand much bigger than Chris around the pontifications I have, that are somewhat related to what I do in digital and marketing and customer experience, but also very unrelated because they're startup-y, they're lessons from the edge, that kind of thing. And so instead of trying to get you and everyone else listening to this to follow me on chrisjsnook.com's blog, I don't even have a blog on my site, right? Because all I use my site for is to get opt-ins to go speak. Because that's what makes me money and that's what gives me opportunity. But I wanted to keep writing about that stuff and needed a container for it. So what better container than Fast Company or Inc? And I knew the editor-in-chief at Inc, so I asked. So again, that's my whole playbook. Right or wrong, I'm learning every day too, but that's my playbook.
Man, this has been so awesome, Chris. I'm just sitting here, I'm like, man, like I've got to talk to you for like another 3 hours. There's like so much good stuff here. And I love that you're passionate about it. You're like sweating and everything. It's like, I can tell that you actually care about this.
I do. I'm ready to go tackle somebody.
Now, this has been so great. Thank you so much for spending this time. And seriously, I've got like 20 follow-up questions, but we've got to cut it off because
let's cut them off. But you and I we'll have more conversations, and we'll share as many of those as we can.
This is so good. Once again, where's the best place for people to get in touch with you? All these people have been watching. They're like, oh my gosh, I got to talk to this guy. How do they get in touch with you?
I have this. This is going to be a shameless plug, and hopefully I've earned it, right? And there's nothing there's nothing to do here, but I do think it's valuable as a video, if nothing else, even just looking for tips. So one of our new portfolio assets is a company called Video Podcast Producers, right? Many of you have podcasts, things like that. But Shayna is a phenomenal female CEO and founder, super excited, and she's very intelligent. She's doing all our videos. She's doing a bunch of stuff like that. So if you go to chrisjsnook.com, that's the best place to just, that's where you find me. But really where you find me is Chris J Snook anywhere on social media, LinkedIn being the easiest and best place to connect to me. Facebook, I don't really accept new connections because, again, it's just the feed thing. But Twitter and LinkedIn, Chris J Snook, and then my website. But the site I'll plug just because there's I had her do this for me. She put like 6 pro tips together for people that are shooting their own podcasts on, things that a production company like ours would do if you were a client of ours. And you can see that at podcast tips. So chrisjsnook.com/podcast tips. You can go see that video. And certainly, obviously, if you're interested in what we offer there, you can opt in. And if not, you'll still have a chance to get that knowledge. And so that'd be my one shameless plug.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much, Chris. Have a great evening. We'll be in touch soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.